And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you loved it so much that you came back for more. And we have more for you. We got a lot more for you. Folks, I'm going to be here giving you more and more and more until you can't stand it anymore. All right. This is the place where we are about podcasters. We are for podcasters, and we are done by podcasters. My guest today, you so guessed it, you cracked the code, is a podcaster. Among other things, he's got some other really cool stuff we're going to talk about today. Folks, this is the place where we come together to support each other, and this is the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So welcome to the Podcaster Nation. Folks, our guest today, really, really cool topic. I can't wait to talk about this. Host of two podcasts, Golfweek Amateur Tour, the podcast, and Speaking with Confidence. Please welcome to the podcast, Dr. Tim Newman. Tim, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Roy. Thanks for inviting me on. I
Well, I
appreciate it.
love having you here. Love your topics. These are unique to me. I haven't really talked to anybody about public speaking or certainly about doing golf. So I love this. But before we get going into all that, let me just kind of introduce you to our guests in such a way that, hey, Tim, who is Dr. Tim Newman? What are you about? And what brings you here today, brother?
So, first off, I'm a recovering college professor, and I help people become better communicators. And I say that in all honesty, that first off, everybody has to understand is I don't take myself very seriously. I take what I do seriously, but I like to have fun doing it, because if we can't have fun with what we do in life, I just think that we're doing it wrong. You got to be able to laugh at yourself and uh, just be able to get on with it. So just to kind of give everybody just a little bit, I I hate talking in front of people. I hate it. Um, the very first time, so you got to go back a long time. I gotten out of the military. I've been an athlete my entire life. I've led people, so I know how to do this. But when you graduate college, Rory, it's still the same way. You got to take some stupid speech communications class where you stand up and you can give a 5 minute talk on whatever stupid topic it is, right? And I got the syllabus. I said, I'm not doing this. And I dropped the class. And I'm really, really good at getting out of things I don't want to do. Really good. I'm the best. I'm the best at it. So fast forward to my senior year, right? And my advisor says, Tim, if you want to graduate college, you have to take this class. Something okay. And again, this is back before we had computers for everybody who's listening, but they weren't like we have them now, right? We didn't have PowerPoint. I had an overhead projector, if anybody knows what that is, and it had the little clear cellophane things that you wrote. They weren't cellophane, but it was plastic, whatever. You wrote on it. Those were your notes. Those were your slides. And I get up for my very first time, and oh my gosh, I set my notes on the table. I get ready to start talking, and I threw up right in front of the class. That was me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But the moral of the story is, Rory, I got out of doing it. I didn't have to do the presentation. I threw up.
Oh my
Done.
gosh. They really let you out of it?
They let me out of it.
Oh, wow. Okay. I
I
mean,
don't advise that for people. I'm just saying what happened to me. Right.
huh. Was it just the one presentation in class and
Oh
you
no,
got,
there was
I was going to say, you didn't just keep
there's
throwing up, did you?
no, I just one time. They said, okay, that's enough. We get it. And I had other things. I had to take the class, didn't have to get up in front of people. They made me do other things. Um, but the reality of it is, getting back to the serious piece, is if we want to be successful in life, we have to be able to build relationships. We have to be able to talk to people. Doesn't matter what industry you get into, you have to be able to communicate with people. And that's how I've kind of transformed to be here today.
Hmm.
Long story short.
Love it. I mean, the question's right in front of me. If I don't ask this, then I need to like hang up my podcasting license. You are a public speaking coach.
Yes. Yes.
So there has to be a step or two in between. In
Oh, there was,
college, I threw up
yeah.
to avoid it, and today I teach people how to do it. What in the world? I mean, what kind of transformation must you have undergone to go from point A to point B like that?
Well, it wasn't simple. I mean, obviously, growing up, I always knew that I wanted to teach. I always knew that I wanted to help people. That was just something that I knew I wanted to do. And as you know, as a young professional, as I progressed in my career, because my career didn't actually start out in teaching, um, but I was helping people. Knowing then, even then, I still had to talk to people. I still had to talk in front of groups of people. I still had to do those things, and it was awful. And people would say, "Try this or try that, try this, try that," and ultimately, I said, "You know what? I just have to buckle down and do it. I just have to figure it out, figure out a process that's going to work for me, and then be able to work that process and get better at it." And essentially what I did. But as a for example, you know, my first teaching job, I was teaching in high school, didn't go through teacher ed program. And I went to the principal and I said, look, I need help teaching. I want somebody to teach me how to teach because I didn't know. And the principal came in and did the observation, started checking off boxes. Oh, you're great. I don't have any suggestions for you. I said, no, that can't possibly be accurate. So I aligned myself with other people who were good at it. I said, okay, how do you do that? Why are you doing it this way? Will that work in this scenario? And I just started searching things out to get better. And I did the same thing with public speaking, this exact same thing. And as I started getting better with that, I started noticing, my students. By this point, I'm teaching at the college level. I started noticing my students were horrible. They were as bad or worse than I was when I started. And so I came up with a plan, and it was working, not really working. And the one thing I was honing on was preparation and practice, which are to me are still the two key cornerstones: preparation and practice, preparation and practice. And at one point, a really good student of mine came up to me and she said, Dr. Newman, you keep telling us to get rid of the filler words. And I said, yeah, you have to get rid of them. And she was really upset. She said, but you never told us how to do it.
Hmm.
Exactly. I did. You know what? I did the exact same thing. And it was like she punched me in the stomach because I'm thinking I'm helping them, but wasn't really helping them. And
Wow.
so then I went back to the drawing board and started trying different things and different techniques. And that's kind of how I got to where we are. Obviously, a couple other steps, came into play here. COVID hit, we go all offline, and we're doing these video teaching, and then we come back in class, and it was like we lost 20 years in that 2 year period. And students' faces are buried in their phones. All there is text messages, trying to get students to uh, have a conversation, build relationships, go to networking events, build professional networks, those types of things, which we know, at least you and I know, are essential, critical,
Yeah.
to our professional lives. And I would say it doesn't really matter what you know if you can't share that information, if you can't communicate that information, it doesn't really matter. And that was probably the nail in the coffin for me in the transformation to start doing what I'm doing now.
Wow. Okay. So you honed your craft of speaking
Yes,
through doing the teaching. I mean, because you are actually
yes,
public speaking when you're
yes,
teaching, you're in front of a class.
yes,
Okay. Um,
absolutely.
did you have help along the way? Did you have a mentor that helped you, or did you just figure this all out on your own?
It was mostly me figuring it out on my own, but obviously I did have mentors. Uh, whether it was a department chair, I had a department chair who was phenomenal. He really did kind of guide me and gave me resources, and I watched how he did it, and we have kind of like the same personalities, so it some of the things that he was doing, I started doing, and it worked for me. Um, Obviously, trying things that other people would show me, maybe they would work, maybe they wouldn't, and it was based on my personality, my teaching style, my content, and you really the interaction with students. But one of the biggest ways that I learned was through my students. You could stand up in front of a class and you can tell if something's touching, if it's hitting, if the way that you're communicating with them, if the way the tone that you're using is hitting, and especially if they come up and say, "I didn't understand this," and I would go back and look at what I was actually talking about. Okay, yeah, maybe I need to take this type of topic that was maybe had some more steps to it and explain it better, or break it down more, or tell more stories about it, tell more relatable stories about this, that, or the other thing. So it was really kind of a combination of professional help and student feedback that
Yeah.
really kind of helped me get better at it.
Student feedback. I mean, anytime any of us go out and do anything, we would love it if we could get, real
Oh
life
my gosh.
feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'd love it, right? And so
Mhm.
you're in a position where you get to not only practice this craft every single day and work on it trying to get better, but you get immediate feedback in real
It,
time.
exactly.
That's great. That's a huge
Yeah.
advantage to trying to. Now, were you trying to become a better public speaker through all of this, or was that like an end result that you hadn't intended for at the beginning?
And result, I was really trying to be a better teacher. I was really,
Okay.
trying to, again, going back to what I always want to do is teach and help people. And again, doesn't matter what you know if you can't communicate it, if you
Yeah.
can't share that, it doesn't really matter. So, you know, and part of this, what a lot of people also have to understand is that ego that we all have, you got to put that aside, and you
Yeah.
have to be open to feedback. You have to be open to learning, and we don't know everything. Trying different things. I mean, I'm 57 years old now, and trying new things. Trying. I mean, just take something podcast SEO. I have no idea what SEO is. I'm still trying to figure it out. But learning and being open to it and talking to different people about it and
Yeah.
trying different techniques, those different types of things, it's so important to getting better at your craft.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a
My
big admission.
my stupid phone. But
So,
Rory, I think it's important because here's the at least this is what I think. As a podcaster, as someone, as a teacher, whatever it is, as a coach, you're viewed as an expert, right? And
yeah.
I don't know any experts that know everything. It's not possible for us to know everything.
No.
It's
Yeah.
okay to say that we don't know. It's okay to say we need to work on certain things. And I think that's something that actually builds credibility.
100%. I love that you're being honest and authentic about it too, and just saying,
Mhm.
"Hey, it's one thing I just don't know about."
Right.
That fosters other people when they hear you say that to admit it themselves and
Mhm.
say, "Hey, I don't either," or "You know what? I know that, but man, I don't know this thing over here." So it's cool that you're leading by example that way.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, very cool. So now you were teaching for a long time, and you made a point of telling me in the pre-interview you didn't retire, you just stopped.
Quit. Quit.
You just quit. Okay. So how long were you teaching?
Oh, I've taught close to 30 years,
Holy
28,
cow.
29 years. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's long enough that if you quit, that's kind of like retiring, isn't it? What is
Yeah. Yeah.
it? Why do you not want to say that you retired? What am I missing? What's
Well,
the
because
vernacular?
I'm not getting that retirement check.
Oh, geez, that's what it
See,
is.
that's the
Ah,
thing.
got it.
There's that other that payoff at the end. I'll get it eventually, but just not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but like I told you, I'm 57. I'm too young to retire. I don't know that I'll ever retire. I just transitioned into other things. It's uh,
Excellent.
just time.
Well, among those other things are your podcasts.
Yes.
So your podcast on public speaking, speaking with confidence, is this teaching people how to become a speaker? Is it, interviewing people who are speakers? What's the makeup of the podcast and how do you run that?
Okay, so it's kind of evolved. So it's only been around for about a year, but it's evolved in that trying to get into where my expertise truly is. Can I help people become better public speakers? Absolutely yes. But before we can become better public speakers, we have to be better communicators, and that's where we're really starting. And I think that's really the nexus of this. And maybe down the line, there'll be another iteration or another version of the podcast where it's all about helping people become better public speakers, getting them on TED stages and getting them on other big stages where they're getting paid. But before you can even get paid to speak, you have to be able to have a regular conversation, whether it's an interpersonal conversation, whether it's a work conversation, whether it's leading a team meeting, those different types of things.
Okay. And to that, when you talk about that, I know that one of the things you mentioned in the notes that I've been able to put together on you over here, and my background work, that you talk about public speaking, but you talk about helping people do an elevator pitch,
Yes.
be a better communicator, maybe even be an effective podcast guest.
Yes,
These are
absolutely.
all things that you work towards in terms of being
Mhm.
a better communicator.
Yes. So, communication, I don't know that there's a right word for it, in terms of public speaking or communication, what have you. It's kind of a gray area, I think, because anytime we step outside of our house, it's public speaking, right? Whether you're at a restaurant, whether it's something like this, that doesn't really matter. And I think that when you look at podcasting in particular, it really isn't any different than having a conversation. It goes back to some of the same fundamental issues: preparation and practice, preparation and practice. So, for example, you did your background research on me to come on. Me as a guest, I kind of did the same thing. I listened to your podcasts. I listened to your other one, just trying to get a feel of flow, trying to get a feel of you as the host and how this is going to go, so that I can be better prepared to make that kind of a smooth transition. On the back end, if I'm the host, just like you, I'm doing a ton of research. I'm if you've been a guest on other podcasts, actually, I don't generally have people on that haven't been guests of other podcasts. But if you've been a guest on other podcasts, I go and I watch as many of them as I can. If you've got a book, I read the book. I go to your website. I do all those different types of things, and so that I have a general idea of how this conversation is going to go. Because I don't like having, for me, I don't like it to be an interview. I want it to be a conversation. I want it to seem like it's more and a couple people just hanging out,
Yeah, sure.
having a coffee, having lunch, exchanging ideas, type of thing.
Beautiful. That's how I try to run both of mine. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I have never really been the one to grab the list and go, okay, so Tim, tell me,
Right.
I've never done that sort of thing, but yeah, so I can appreciate that. The podcast then works on all of those things, including elevator pitch and things like that.
So it the speaking podcast does, yes, absolutely. We haven't really touched too much on the elevator pitch, um, per se. We talked about it a little bit, but that that's really, I don't want to give away a secret, but that's kind of a teaser. If you want that, you've got to come over here and get that, because um, that to me is a that's something really personal. I mean, I can give you ideas, right?
Hmm.
But to me, that's a personal, helping somebody craft that's really kind of personal. And I kind of the way that I do it is I enlist the people that I'm coaching to enlist some of their uh, inner circle to help them with it as well, because you may know you, or you may think that you know you, and you may think that you're presenting in a certain way, but my guess is there's something that somebody in your inner circle sees that you're missing, that can add a ton of value to whoever it is that you're talking to.
Nice. I like that. Now, it's amazing to me. I'm, an older guy, and so I know what elevator pitch means, but I've
Yes.
used that phrase before with some younger folks, and they look at me like, "What? What? What are you talking about?" Do you mind telling folks, for those who don't know, what an elevator pitch is?
So it's a 30 to 45-second statement about you that provides value to somebody else, that they will remember you for what you said in in that value statement. So, for example, an easy one for me to share is, I'm I'm a recovering college professor, and I help people become better communicators. What sticks there? The recovering college professor is
Sure.
what that's why, Rory, that was chosen very, very specifically, and kind of how this happened. Um, we were, I say we, and it was really me, my wife, and my coach, we were really kind of struggling with some messaging, some wording, some terminology because things didn't seem to be landing. And I was going to a conference, and I went with four different pitches, and the one recovering college professor got either a chuckle or a oh every time, and that was the one. So that was the one that really kind of stuck, and it's the powerful communicator. So combining recovering college professor and powerful communicator, those were the two that just kind of married and combined. And so you've got to think of it from that perspective. It's really a marketing piece for you. You've got 30 to 45 seconds to introduce yourself, provide value to the other individual, so that they're going to remember who you are in that short amount of time.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so these are things that you work on. This is what the
Yes, sir.
podcast is. No, you said you've been doing it
Mm.
for a year. About how many episodes do you have, do you know?
I think episode 45 came out today,
Nice.
and so it was, and it's. I went from doing, I do the two podcasts. So when I was working full time, I would do like the golf podcast one week and the speaking podcast, and then starting this past January, I did the speaking one once a week, and now about a month or so ago, I added a second speaking podcast. So now I do two speaking podcasts every week with the golf every other.
Hmm. Nice. Okay, so well, we're going to come back to the speaking thing because I want to get into your, what you teach and stuff.
Yeah,
But I want to shift over a little bit just because I've never talked to anybody who has a golf podcast.
yeah.
So tell me about, what is the golf podcast? What does it
Well,
consist of? And how in the world do you start just doing a golf podcast out of nowhere?
Roy, that's a great question. Um, so, and that's one I've been doing the longest. We um we were coming out of COVID, and I had so much going on in my life. Just it was a lot, and I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't having any fun. There was no, and I told you I like to have fun in what I do, but there was no fun. I mean, there was a lot of family stuff going on, work, this, that, and the other thing, and wasn't having any fun. So I had the idea a number of years ago to do this podcast, but one thing led to another and never get started, which is one of the biggest problems with podcasters. But anyway, I do a side business where we run golf tournaments. It's called the Golfweek Amateur Tour, and we run individual stroke play tournaments in 47 different markets across the country. So there's a tour director in each of these markets, and my friend is the one who owns the company. And I went to him. I said, "Look, can I do the podcast? Can I start this podcast?" Is kind of the idea. And he looks at me. He says, "Tim, I don't care. Do whatever you want to do." I said, "Okay." And so we did it. And I've got a co-host for this, and he lives in El Paso. I live in South Carolina. And we basically, what we do is we interview our tour members, our tour directors, golf pros, golf course or resort GMs, those types of things, and we talk about the tour. We talk about winners of specific tournaments. We've got a national championship we talk about. We've got regional tournaments at big name places that we travel to and do live hits from. Um, that's kind of what it's grown into. It took off. It took off in 3 episodes every other week. 3 episodes it took off.
Wow.
And it's a lot. I mean, it's a heck of a lot of fun because I'm talking to people, regular guys, regular women. I mean, it's for everybody. We've got members who are 12 to 80, and it's the tagline is it's where amateurs play like pros. So we interview them. So I don't know when this is going to air, but it's May, so it's Military Appreciation Month, and we interview veterans or active duty people, and they're telling their stories.
Nice.
Um, I'm getting ready to go to 2 regional tournaments in Florida over the next couple of weeks. I mean, so it's it's sharing information about the tour to our members all across the country. And it's a heck of a lot of fun. Heck of a lot.
And say it sounds like it's a passion project for you too, and you
It
must love
is.
golf.
I do, and it's it did bring that joy back. I mean, and it because I was actually during that time I haven't played. I haven't played since before COVID.
Oh wow.
Just yeah, because again, any number of different things, work, you know, travel, family stuff, health stuff, all those different things. Life gets in the way of doing those types of things. But the podcast is what brought joy back into, I wouldn't say into my life, but it gave me that fun, gave me something that outlet to be able to have fun and do something that I enjoyed. And that's in a sense really kind of grown and was the impetus to really kind of start the speaking podcast as 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 I move forward with it.
All right. I love that. I love that you're having fun with it like that too. That's
Yeah,
just, I think too often we forget that podcasting, at its heart should be fun.
yeah,
But so I love that you're doing that. Let me bounce back over to the speaking
yeah,
podcast for a moment, and then I've got some questions for like both of them, of course.
yeah,
But
yeah.
now, in addition to the podcast, you have a course of some kind or a mentorship or something
Yes.
where you teach people how to public
Mhm.
speak. Tell me about that. What if I want to be a better public speaker or a better communicator? What does your course involve, and what's in it for me?
So the formula for public speaking, which is what I talk about, is the program that I really developed working with my students. And I'm a systems person. And if you give me a system that's easy to follow, that's repeatable, you do it long enough, it becomes second nature and you become good at it. And I wanted to create something that was easy for students to grasp, didn't require a whole lot of extra things that they don't really need to get started with. And that's how the formula for public speaking really was created. And it's based on four things: your audience, your content, the expectation, and then the catch-all script. And the biggest thing that I focus on um, in the audience is you have to know who you're talking to. This is where the majority of the work comes from, and really, in my opinion, in any type of public speaking, any podcast, whatever. I've talked about it, a little bit here. You need to know who you're speaking with. Do as
Oh yeah.
much research as you possibly can. Find out everything that you possibly can about them, and that's going to make everything else after that easier. After you know who your audience is, then you pull all the content that you have on whatever topic it is that you're going to be talking about. Um, then you look at the expectations, and the expectations really kind of depends on what the format is. What are the expectations of the audience? What are the expectations of of the person who's hired you, if there's that? What are your expectations of getting out of this? And you package all these things down. Then you can start pulling some of the content out, throw that away, that doesn't match whatever. Then you get to the script, and that's when you start building the story that you're going to tell them. And it's not a lie; it's just a story. Um, you, you, you're gonna lead them from point A to point B, keeping them engaged, keeping them leaned in, based on who they are, the audience, the correct content based on the expectations. Um, part of the problem that students have is you tell them that they need to do a presentation. The first thing they do is open up PowerPoint, and I don't even talk about PowerPoint until like one of the very last things. Until after you've got you've got the flow. You may have a script word for word to start with, and then we whittle it down. But we don't even talk about PowerPoint until the very end. We talk about practice. We talk about creating that script, using the right words and practice. And it's that practice where you can start really working on those terms. You know, I need to use a different word here. I need to maybe pause here. I need to say it with more emphasis there. And you can't do those types of things if you don't practice. So it comes back to, the bookends, the preparation and the practice.
Nice. And so, where can they find information about this course that you have?
So that can be found on the website at timnewmanspeaks.com.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. This sounds like it takes a little while to. I mean, it's not like one big seminar or something. It sounds like it's an ongoing working through process. Is there a certain
Yes.
number of weeks that this course takes?
So it's a self-paced course, but it's actually four modules, and depending on who you are and depending on what your strengths and weaknesses are, you may spend only some time on audience. You may spend some time on determining which content it is, because that's another big problem. People don't know what they should talk about. They may know who they're talking to, but they don't know what they should talk about.
Right.
And that's that could be a focus. So, I mean, you could get through the whole course in a week if you wanted to, but then it comes back down to, have you retained it? Have you practiced it? Have you actually done those things? I encourage people as they go through the course and there are assignments, or activities, let's just say activities throughout that that I've embedded into the course that they should actually go and do and practice those types of things. Where to get information from, what information to look for, and those types of things. But the real key is putting it into practice and seeing the results from point A to point B, presentation one, communication one to communication two. And again, that other piece is that's good for an actual presentation, but it's also good for an interpersonal conversation as well. Like if you have to go to an interview, if you have to stand up and talk about something in a team meeting or a networking event, all those same elements come into play.
Nice. So this is a little off the cuff, but I'm sure you can handle it. Do you think that podcasting, that being the host of a podcast, helps you in being a better communicator, being better at public speaking?
It absolutely does, in actually in a couple of different ways. And I say, and I've brought this up recently to somebody else. Let's just say I'm looking into the camera right now, and all I'm seeing is the camera. I'm not seeing your face. I'm not seeing anybody else's face. So you really have to practice it and work on the message that you're saying, because as soon as I take my camera and I start to look at you, there's that disconnect, right? And when you're talking to an audience, and again, this doesn't matter whether it's electronically or if it's in person. Let's just say you're sitting down at a dinner, for a dinner meeting with your boss or potential client, what have you. If you're talking to them, you should be looking at them, looking at their facial expressions, that body language. Is the message that you're saying touching with them? But you also have to get comfortable being uncomfortable and not necessarily knowing everything that's going on, but knowing that you're engaged with that audience. That's one. But number two, it's that preparation and being prepared to speak on a subject kind of off the cuff, even though you're prepared. You don't necessarily know what's coming from, at least your questions to me. Outside, to me, it's just a regular conversation, but being prepared to answer them and being comfortable answering questions and thinking on your feet, it's so critical to be able to do that.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, as a podcaster,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's really cool. All
Mhm.
right. So, I mean, you've got these two cool podcasts. Let me ask you a little bit about, as a podcaster, as the producer of your podcast, what do you do to promote these podcasts, to get them out there, to raise your listenership?
Wow, that's Rory. That's such a good question, and um, I got to answer this in a couple of different ways. So, the Golfweek podcast, I don't really do a whole lot because we've got a ready-made audience. We've got 6,000 members. I host, I do the podcast. I put it on YouTube. It goes out to everywhere through the RSS feed and all that sort of things. I may do one or two posts on Facebook in the tour group. It may get an email out from the national office, but I've got a ready-made audience. I already know it's there. They're
Right.
already listening, and that's what killed me. Honestly, that's what killed me. I said, okay, you know what? I couldn't think about it. So when I started doing the speaking podcast, I said, the listeners will show up. They'll just know. And after the first one, I said, what? I went to my wife and said, nobody's listening to this thing. And I'm thinking, wait a second here. They're two very different podcasts. I've got a branded podcast with a list of people that's already there. I didn't have to build a list, didn't have to find anybody. They're already there. The Speaking with Confidence podcast, I had to actually build it. I had to start from scratch.
Right.
And that I didn't think about that before I started it. I just figured it's easy. People can show up, start listening. But that's not how it works. And so, I do a lot of work on the back end. We talked about this briefly before we jumped on. I do everything. So, oh man, I'm promoting it on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. With all kinds of different things. What I know some of the other things that I need to do, and they're in the pipeline to do. It's just getting the time and building that into the schedule to be consistent with emails, with driving traffic to the podcast, driving traffic to the excuse me, to the web page, and those types of things to grow the audience. But I'll tell you there are two things that have really helped me. One of them came from my wife, and she said, Tim, you need to start telling people about the podcast. Not on the podcast, because if nobody knows about it, they're not going to listen. You need, when you're talking to people, you need to promote the podcast by word of mouth, and that has really helped. The second thing is, and this is kind of how we met, was through Podmatch.
Yeah.
The service has helped in a number one in a number of different ways. Just connecting each other with guests and hosts, but some of the other things that come with that in terms of ideas on how to promote, building that it's like anything else. You've got to build a network of the people that are doing those types of things, which is going to help your growth. Now, understand, anybody that's getting into be a podcast, if you think you're going to be Joe Rogan, you're not. And now, see, I was realistic. I never thought I was going to be Joe Rogan, but I didn't think that growing the audience was going to be as hard, as difficult as it really is, and learning how to adjust those expectations. What's a good month? What's a good episode? Really, what's a good episode? Not what's a good month. What's a good episode? And seeing what lands, and seeing what your audience likes and what they don't like. And I'll tell you what, Roy, and I don't want to go on too much with this, but the episodes that I think, oh man, these are really, really good, they're not. They're not. I think they're good,
yeah.
but if the audience doesn't think that they are, guess what? They're not.
Right. Well, they're still good. They're just not popular with the audience. It doesn't mean they're not good. Right? Come on.
Right. But if we're trying, the whole idea is to provide value for the audience.
Right.
And give them what they want, or what they think that they want, or what they think that they need to help elevate them. Just like what you say, high tide elevates all ships. We want to make sure that we're helping the people that we say that we're helping, or want to help.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Love it. No, I love the answer. It's funny because you had to find your audience, like the advice you give, right? You just had to find your audience. Mm-hmm. So that's a very good first step for people going in. Mm-hmm. And that makes a lot of really good sense. So at this point, you've been doing the podcast for a year. How long have you been doing the golf podcast?
4 years. I'm at the end of September, it'll be 4 years.
Okay. So if you had a chance to get into monetizing the podcast then, and, find a way to, earn some income.
That's another really good question, because the golf podcast is branded. I mean, I don't see any money for that outside of, we get paid to travel. So we have sponsors that pay for that. When we started it, what I told the owner was, I'm not asking for any help. because I don't want to add workload to anybody, but we've grown, and what they've done is they've gone out and solicited sponsors, tour sponsors, that then funnel money over for us, for me and my partner, to travel, to do, the live hits and those types of things. That's fine. Now, the Speaking with Confidence podcast do not have sponsors. I would love some, had some. I keep money in a jar. Wish I had more. Um, but I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's hard to it's hard to find a sponsor, or to even approach a sponsor from my. Let's back up. My background is in marketing and public relations.
Okay.
So I'm in my head a lot, making sure that, especially with the Speaking with Confidence podcast, that I don't want to have anything that's not relevant to the audience, or that's going to turn the audience off. And
Yeah.
I have that in my head. So, you know, it's the imposter syndrome that we talk about all the time. That again, this is me. This is my internal talk, right?
Right.
It's no. And you said this on, I think it was on your third episode of helping podcasts. Your advice. Nobody should be telling you what to do. It's your podcast,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But it's me, right? And it's me, my own internal talk. Now, I don't want to go. I don't want to talk to them. It's not, maybe not necessarily right. What is my audience going to think? What have you? So it's just like anything else. Getting over that hurdle, and getting the let's say the gumption, but the the energy to ask, to say, to make that ask and say, is this going to be a good fit for you? And this is the value that my audience can bring to you, and this is the value that you can bring to my audience.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's a hard thing for me, from the podcast perspective, to get over.
Hmm. I love that. Again, I'm glad that that's important to you,
Yeah.
because a lot of people are like, oh, well, I've got ads, and the ads have nothing to do with what's going on in the podcast. And there are some people who don't even know they have ads because they never
Oh
went
my
back and
God.
listened
Uh,
to the episode. So I think I talked about that in that series that I
yeah.
did
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
And that one just floored me, but it's good to be cognizant of that. So, I mean, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with the way you're looking at
Except for I'm not getting paid.
it. Well, there's
But
that.
there's that. But
There's that.
we'll get over that. But and I think my ultimately it comes back to me providing value to the audience.
Yeah.
What is it that we're really trying to do, and am I doing that? So it is what it
Nice.
is.
Now, do you do public speaking yourself?
I do.
What sorts of, venues, what topics do you speak on? Is it about public speaking that you're speaking?
So a lot of, yeah, yes and no. Most of what I do revolves in the education space, because that's where I've come from,
Right.
and it's about teaching soft skills, and really kind of how, from the education perspective, we've done it wrong.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things that we haven't done right in education. I think not teaching financial literacy is one, not teaching soft skills is one, and those are two big ones that we're really failing our students with. And I don't talk about the financial literacy piece, but I do talk about the soft skills piece, and some of the things that we can do to make small shifts, uh, that can really help, our students be better, so that um, I'm out of a job. I would much rather be out. I would much rather be out of a coaching job than where we're at right
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. Okay. Wow. Good deal. I usually ask a corny question along the way. And what is it about doing your podcasts? And if you need to give separate answers for each podcast because they're so different, that's totally fine. But what is it about podcasting, okay, and doing your podcast that you love the most? And what is it about doing your podcast that you just really dislike the most?
now. The thing I love the most is the same for both. It's that I'm talking and connecting with people that I would not normally know. With the golf one, it could be somebody from Houston, it could be somebody from Seattle, it could be somebody from wherever in the United States, right? That's that we have that golf connection, that we have that passion for golf um, that's that I wouldn't necessarily know them, wouldn't have that opportunity. But with the speaking one, it's really the same thing, but it's worldwide. I'm literally talking to people all over the world on a regular basis, and what I found is we're all dealing with the same stuff from a communication perspective. We're all dealing with people who don't listen. We're all dealing with people who interrupt. We're all dealing with people who have their face buried in their phone. We're all dealing with people who don't know how to run a good meeting. Uh, all those things, and it's universal. But I'm connecting and uh, building relationships with people all over the world, and that's what I love.
Okay. And the thing that you dislike the
The
most.
thing I dislike the most with the golf one, it's the putting the episode together because it's a long episode. Even though it's only 2 weeks, it's every other week. It's a long episode, and the editing. So let's just say we have somebody who doesn't have good. The sound is awful, or the camera is going in and out, and it's awful, and the editing of that. So like, if we try and keep those interviews 20 to 25 minutes, right? So we are the golf episode, the golf week. It's generally three main segments. It's got interview one, interview two, and then a closing with me and my partner, where we really talk about things nationwide and interpersonal things like that. So that that segment is generally pretty easy. It's the two segment interview segments that generally cause a problem, where again it comes down to sound, where it comes down to video quality, where that's really kind of takes up a lot of time to edit it so that it's actually usable. And so I told you it's Military Appreciation Month, and the first episode of the month interviewed a friend who I knew was a veteran, but I didn't know everything that was going on, and I couldn't use most of what it was because I wasn't going to put him out there and some of the things that he said. I mean, I couldn't do that to him, right? A lot of PTSD types of things. I said, "There's no way I'm not doing that to somebody.
Hmm.
We need to give him some help that I didn't know about." And so things like that, where a 20-minute segment shouldn't take that long to edit, is like an hour and a half or 2 hours. Just trying to do that. So that's what I hate, and that is what it is. I'll deal with that. From the speaking one, it's telling people no, telling people no. I can't interview.
And and under what circumstances? Give us an example.
Okay, so I'm booked right now. So it's middle of May. I'm booked with interviews for episodes through September, which is a good thing.
Wow.
But I
Wow.
still I still get requests every day. I'm like, wow, I would love to have you on. I'd love to have you. And so I've got to push them out. And that's the bad part because I don't have the bandwidth. You do a lot of episodes, and maybe this is where you can help me here. I don't have I don't know that I have the time to add more episodes each week with doing everything else. How do you handle that?
Well, I do it full time. So, and I don't, I mean, I work a lot of hours.
Yeah.
So, but we're empty nesters, my wife and I, and I get to work from home and she knows how much I love doing it. So, there are nights when she's sitting there having a glass of wine and I'm sitting at my desk working, in the same room, but we make it work, and that's pretty much how it
Yeah.
happens. But like I said, I do it full time. That's if I wasn't doing it full time and I was trying to work another job or even a part time job, I would never be able to put out what I put out content wise, ever.
It's I mean it's hard. So like all but so I say I'm booked out through September. I think all but three of those have already been recorded. I already have them. So it's just the putting it together,
Wow.
doing the marketing for it, and those other things. Um, I've honestly considered adding another episode, but I just don't know how that would happen. Because the second episode I've added is it's a solo episode once a week. 15 to 20 minutes of just me, just talking about basically whatever the the previous episode was about. So like the one that came out today, we really focused on listening. So the episode for me that's going to come out on Thursday is going to be 5 tips on listening,
Hmm.
how to become a better listener.
Oh,
To build that personal brand of not just me being, the interview host who hosts other people that are doing these things, but giving my expertise on how to go about it as well. And I've been doing that for a little over a month. So I definitely want to keep doing that, but I don't know how to add another episode in there. That's the struggle.
no, I understand. Maybe that's something we can chat about off the air. Maybe I
Yes.
can help you out. So, well, but no, I understand the struggle is real, so
Yeah.
to speak,
Yeah.
and you only have so much time with the things that you have going in your day. So, it is difficult, but having multiple episodes per week definitely helps you,
Mhm.
especially with the algorithm stuff. So, it's cool that you're doing that. Um, I love where you are. Let me do this. I'm gonna hit you with what is normally my final question, but I have one more after it. Okay,
Okay.
so let me just give you a little warning.
All right.
So, what is normally the final question is, what piece of advice do you have for podcasters who are not quite where you are yet? So let's handle that one first.
Yeah, I think it's a 2 or 3 part answer here. So number one, it's not as easy as you think it is. It's not as hard as you think it is. But don't give up. Whatever it is, it's you have to continue pushing through and forward with it. Um, that's the only way you're ever going to be successful. Because if let's just put it this way, if I were to have given up after the first month, where I get more listens in a day than I did my entire month, first month and a half. And it comes back to number one, I didn't give up, and I asked for help, and that's the other piece to a lot of this. It's okay to not know something. It's okay to ask for help, because what I found in over the course of my career and all the things I've done is everybody in all those different industries, if you ask for help, people are willing to help you. You don't have to go with this alone. And especially with the podcast network, you know what? We're all in this together. I mean, and that has been an across the board. I've never spoken to a podcaster and asked for advice, and they told me to pound sand.
Right. Good. That's
You know
awesome.
what? So it's get through it. Ask for help.
Beautiful. All right. My last question is because as I'm listening to this and I'm hearing what you're doing, I'm just wondering. And so, if you don't have an answer for it, that's okay. And you can go tell me to pound sand. No problem at all. But as you do these podcasts, they're very different, and they seem to have different, long-term goals and whatnot. What's your purpose, and what's your end game? Where would you like to see yourself years from now with these podcasts?
Wow, that's a really good question. I with the golf week one, I'm not really sure. I do know that there's a shelf life there for that one. I don't know what that is, but that's I'll know it when I know it for that one.
Okay.
With the speaking with confidence one, really the long term, I would say the long term goal is to be able to provide people with ideas, helps, and tips for whenever they need it. And I don't know that it's with the podcast. To me, it's not necessarily about the money, but just maybe it's my self talk that it's hard to be able to generate that from the podcast, and maybe it's to drive people to the coaching business. But ultimately, with everything that I do, it's about helping other people. Uh, as I'm, I'm just kind of thinking that and going through it as speaking as I'm thinking it through. Ultimately, that's what I do is I help people. That's what that's, it's to help people.
Nice. I appreciate you fielding that last question like that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Uh, Tim, I appreciate you coming on here and just, sharing everything that you have about what you're doing, why, both your podcasts, about your coaching programs. I'm sure that there are people out there. I know there are people out there who are, looking for help with, public speaking. And I hope that any of those folks that are out there, give you a shout. Check out your podcast, look at the website, check out your coaching program. It sounds like you got some really cool things going on here, brother.
I think I do as well. I think I'm the best, but it's just me.
That's all
I,
right.
I, and I would just say I think the one thing that at least I see of myself is I'm just a regular guy. I'm not a big flash. I don't use big words. I don't I'm just your regular person who wants to help you. It's not about anything other than that.
Nice. That kind of authenticity comes through,
Yeah,
man. It connects with
awesome.
people. So love it. Love it. All right. Host of the Golfweek Amateur Tour, the podcast, and Speaking with Confidence. Dr. Tim Newman, thank you, sir, for coming on the show today and telling everybody all about what you're doing and sharing your visions. I appreciate it very much.
Roy, thanks so much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. That's my goal. So as long as you had some fun somewhere
Yes.
along the way.
I
All
got to
right.
tell somebody else I threw up, so we're good.
That's okay, bro. All right, folks, that's another episode of the Podcaster Nation. This is the episode, or the episode, this is the podcast where it's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. Folks, this is the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So keep sailing.